Well, hello everybody out there. Thank you for tuning in. This is Dave Hill coming at you with lesson 33. I was just kind of having a little fun there with my minor chords and my progression. I was just kind of improvising there with. But what I wanted to talk about was kind of part of what I was doing in that progression. And essentially what we're going to do in the lesson today is talk about the sounds I was using there. Okay? Now, you'll notice that I was in the key of A minor in that particular example. I was playing around chords in the key of A minor, but I was adding some other elements to the progression occasionally with a chord that brought it a little bit out of the key of straight A minor, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because we've certainly found ourselves in the situation where we're playing in A minor and we're comfortable, but sometimes there's a chord that comes along in and out of the key of A minor or in a minor key in general that makes us have to find another scale that we're going to have to learn how to navigate through. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and take a look on the board behind me and examine what we know about A minor. Okay, in this case, I've written it on the board, A natural minor, which is another name for the Aeolian mode, which is the sixth mode of a major scale. Okay, so if you take, in this case, the C major scale, and you started it instead of from C but from A, and you went up to the octave, you get an A natural minor scale. It sounds like this. Okay, there's one octave of it. Okay, now that's a very nice scale to play over any kind of chord progressions, and if we were in the key of A that had this kind of a sound like I was playing in the beginning. Maybe like this. Okay, that's not exactly what I was playing, but let's say if that's what the progression was right now, this would be the perfect scale for it. And what you end up with when you harmonize the scale, in other words, if you take every other note and you stack every other note on top of each other, you come up with the harmony of the scale. So let's review that just to make sure. We've talked about this in other lessons, but let's review it here so we can remember what it is. So the first chord of the A natural minor scale becomes an A minor 7 chord. Okay, because of the minor third and the flat 7, it's called a minor 7th chord. Okay, the second chord is called a minor 7 flat 5, and I'm using the dash to mean minor, just like I did here. Okay, so that means minor 7, it's just an abbreviation. Okay, the third chord becomes a C major 7. Okay, that's this kind of sound. Okay, the fourth chord becomes another minor 7 chord, in this case D minor 7. Sounds like this. The 5th chord becomes an E minor 7th chord. Right? So notice we have minor chords on the 1, 4, and 5 of the chord progression. So that's a very typical minor progression right there. That would be like a typical A minor progression. Okay, moving on, we have the 6th chord, and we have that as an F major 7. So that might also get incorporated in there nicely. And then finally on the 7th chord from the G, we have a G 7th chord. Okay, so there's the full harmony of the key of A natural minor, which you will recognize is the exact same thing as the harmony of C major. However, starting from the 6th degree and calling that the 1, it becomes A minor. Okay, so that's kind of what I was messing around at the beginning of the lesson. I was playing these chords. Right, not exactly that, but that's what it would sound like if I was straight in the key. Now, what happens when I do stuff like this? So when I'm taking this progression, and I like this, that's basically an F chord, but then I do this. am I implying there? What about these sounds? Right? I'm getting into a different kind of a chord on that fifth chord. Instead of playing E minor seventh, I'm playing an E dominant seventh. Okay. Now, why would I do that? Why does that sound natural and nice to the ear? Does sound pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, that's because it has a certain pull back to the one chord, back to the one of the key, because of that note, specifically the leading tone of the scale going into the root of the scale. Not the G natural that would normally be the seventh of the scale, but a G sharp. Okay, so what I'm getting at is we're going to learn a new scale today, and it's called a harmonic minor scale. So when you take a natural minor scale and you substitute the flat seven of the scale for the sharp seven or the major seven, you get a variation of a minor scale, but it works out nice in a variety of different chord progressions. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this seventh right here of this A natural minor scale, and we're going to make it a sharp seven, okay? And really what we've got now is not a natural minor scale, but a harmonic minor. That's what you call this kind of scale. And that's due in part to this note right here. Okay? So, right, that adds a nice pull back into the tonic. It adds a little bit more color to the scale. And it's interesting because now you've got this larger interval between the 6th degree and the 7th degree. Now you've got a minor third. It's a little bit more exotic sounding. And that's going to influence the scale harmony that we would get as a result of harmonizing this scale. Pretty much any note, or any chord that had a 7th in it, the G, or the G rather, is going to be affected. So if you take this chord and you sharp, let's just go through and sharp all the G's here, and you'll see what's going to happen here quickly. Where is it? Right here, right there. Now we're going to have a profound difference in every one of these chords. If you take the A minor chord and you raise the G to a G sharp, you're going to have this kind of a sound, right? Which is going to sound like this. Okay, I'm playing it in a different position so I can finger it better. But it's a minor major 7, so that's not exactly correct anymore. It's a little kind of a harsh sounding chord. You might hear it in progressions more often like this. There's the minor major sound right there, and this is the 9th on the top, but it's essentially, you'll hear it a lot of movement kind of progressions, but in this case, it's just simply a minor, and then I'm going to use the triangle for major 7th. That's what that means. Minor, major 7th. Okay, so it's this sound. Okay, now the 2 chord, it didn't affect it because there was no G in the harmony, so it won't affect the 2 chord. Now when you go to the 3 chord, you have, before you had a major 7th sound that was 1, 3, 5th, major 7th. But now we've got not a natural 5th, or perfect 5th rather, but a sharp 5. So that's exactly what that's going to be called now, a major 7 with a sharp 5. So there's a voicing that you could learn right there. Here's a major 7, and here's a major 7 with a sharp 5, because again we have the G sharp replacing the G. So let's fix that. Major 7, and all we have to do is just say sharp 5, and then we've got the correct spelling. It's supposed to be a 5 there. Okay. Now, once again, on the 4 chord, D minor, there was no G in the voicing, so that won't be affected. Okay, now here's what profoundly happens on the 5 chord. We have a root, and before, when we had the G natural, it was root, minor 3rd, minor, perfect 5th, flat 7. Now we have 1, major third, perfect fifth, flat 7. And that's what makes the true essence of the harmonic minor scale really come alive, and that's the dominant 5 chord, dominant 7. So that's what I was getting at when I was playing these progressions. I was playing that E7 chord a lot to give you the feel of where you hear that in minor progressions. It's generally on the 5 chord right here. This is the big reason that harmonic minor really sounds good, is on the 5 chord, the dominant 7 5 chord. Okay. Now the 6 chord once again won't be affected because it doesn't have a G in it, but when you get to the actual 7 chord where the G was in the bass, now it's going to be a G sharp in the bass, and that's going to make a big difference too, because instead of having this sound, right, 1 3 5 flat 7 1, now we have a flat, the root is moved up a half step, and that's actually going to sound like a 1 flat third, flat 5, and that's called a double flat 7. So this is a spelling of a new chord for you at home there. This is actually going to be how you spell a diminished chord. So it's called G sharp diminished 7th. Okay, it's kind of a wordy name, but it's this kind of a chord. Okay, so listen to how that's going to change every chord now. Here's the first chord, A minor major. Here's the 2 chord. Here's the 3 chord. Here's the 4 chord. Here's the 5 chord. Here's the 6 chord. And here's the 7 chord. And here's the 1 chord again. Okay, so it's a little bit, there's a little bit more tension in this harmonic minor scale because of the nature of this leading tone in the progression or in the scale. Okay, now how does that affect our patterns over here? Here's where I have our scales written out in 2 positions. And to make the change now, so we can use it effectively over a chord progression, all we have to do is find where the 7th is and make that change in our pattern. So it's really not that difficult if you've been keeping up with your scale studies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the octave. So there's the 7th right there. So all we're going to have to do is raise that up a half step, and we've got our harmonic minor scale. So there's the first octave of it. And then, of course, the next octave has to be addressed. Changes the fingering a little bit. Now, there's the 7th right there, but we've got to get the flat 7 out of there and make it a raised 7. So we're going to put the raised 7th right here and get rid of this note. And that gives us this fingering now. Now listen to it against that 5 chord, and it really sounds good. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it in one more scale while we're working at it. Here it is with this position. Natural minor, as we know. In this position, okay, that's cool, but let's find the 7th again. It's easy to find in these scales because it's only a whole step below the root, so all we have to do is erase the note that's a whole step below the root and add it right there. And then, in this case, really what we'd have to do is bring it up, because this is the flat 7 right there. But now it's going to be a little bit of a stretch. So we're going to get rid of this note. And that's what this is supposed to be, the next fret up there. And then on the bottom here, we could play the major 7th down here and then get rid of it right here. So it really only changes one note in the scale, but it does change the fingering enough that we have to accommodate that. right? So it really is most effective. Let's change the name of the scale here now so it makes sense. I'm going to abbreviate it, Harmonic Minor. Okay? So that's what we've been working on. We've got a natural minor scale. I'm sorry, one. And we're going to change to harmonic minor by changing one note. And we've done that in 2 patterns now. Here's the other one. Let's try this together. 3, 4 from the root. Okay, so 2 different positions of that. Now, here's what I want to show you now. Now that we've got this great scale, I'm going to let you listen to how great it sounds against this, against this progression right here. Okay, you're going to recognize it when I play the progression because it's a very famous song. And I'm giving you some direction already where to play certain things, but notice how I'm focusing where I want you to play it on the E7 chord at the end of the bars here, because that's where the harmonic minor scale is going to be used most effectively. Okay? So listen to the progression now and you see if you recognize it. 3, 4. Listen to it. Oops. So in that quick little example there, you can hear how in certain parts of the progression, primarily at the end of the progression there, when I hit the E7 chord, I'm bringing in the sound of the E7 chord more strongly by playing a little bit of that scale. Because it really brings out the flavor of the E chord much more dramatically because it has a G sharp in it. And that's what a lot of times happens when you're playing over chord progressions, is you find spots where it moves slightly out of the pure scale that you're in into another mode of another scale, or within the same key but a slightly different mode in the same key. And that's how you have to be smart about what scales and how to accommodate those other modes. Okay, so why don't you work on that over this progression for the lesson and just have a little fun on that last part of the progression. Basically play blues and minor pentatonic stuff, natural minor stuff at the beginning of it, and just kind of lay into the harmonic minor a little bit more on the end, and you'll capture the flavor of that progression really nicely. Okay, so this is Dave Hill signing off. I hope you had a good lesson, and I'll see you in the next one. Practice hard. I'll see you later.